Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a very exciting guest with us for this interview, Jussi Tarvainen. Jussi, thank you so much for taking the time and coming to this interview.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the invite, George.
So you are a former pro snowboarder, you wrote the book Pro Mental Games, you've done mental coaching for Olympic athletes, and on top of that, you're a serial entrepreneur, brand strategist, a full-stack designer, and you worked alongside of Scarlett Johansson. Let's unpack all of this in this interview. So, you told me you had two dreams as a kid.
Yeah. I had when I was in lower grammar school, so that's I don't know, 7 to 12 years old. I had two dreams. One was to be able to snowboard for a living, and the other one was to be able to draw anything from my imagination.
Wow, cool. All right, so let's start with your first dream. So how does someone actually go from just enjoying snowboarding to actually being a pro and being sponsored?
That's a good question. So I think for me, you're really passionate about something, and then you do it a lot. So for snowboarding, I just every day after school I would go snowboard, and every day I would snowboard for 4 hours, and I was having fun with my friends. I was learning, and I really, when you're learning new things, you're making progress, and you're getting those little when you land new tricks, you get to feel good. I think the 4 key things was mileage. You need to do a lot of repetition. Like any snowboard trick that you learn, just need to do it more than once to learn it. Just like if you're an entrepreneur, you try advertising the first time, or you try understanding your customer, do one interview. That's not enough. You have to do repetition to build the skills.
Right.
And then doing something with your friends, you're gonna have fun.
Right.
So if you start this journey on becoming an entrepreneur, it's probably a long journey. So you have to have fun, because if you're just unhappy the whole time, you're gonna run out of energy, you're gonna run out of motivation. So you gotta make it fun somehow. Mm-hmm. And while with snowboarding, I was really good. We were having a lot of fun. And I was doing it with friends. I made that mistake later on, that I haven't had my friends with me, and I've been trying to do it, by myself.
Right.
And it makes things harder. And I think it's, better when you can do it with other people. So I think that's one thing. And so going from, just being a snowboarder and doing it for fun, becoming a pro, it obviously requires that you need to become a really, really good. You need to become better than most.
Right.
And for that, I think any successful person, or most successful people, they forgot to give credit to luck and genetics.
Right.
And they want to say oh, I did it all, it was me. But it's never just one person. I think it's we want to say that because it makes us feel that we did it, that I'm responsible. But nobody gets successful by themselves. It's a team effort. And with snowboarding, it's an individual sport, but you still don't do it yourself. You have photographers with you, you have your friends that you're riding, you're building the jumps together. It's a full team effort.
Yeah.
Just like building a business. If you try to do it yourself, there's so many skills that you're trying to learn that you're never going to have the time to get really, really good at all of those skills. So you gotta find what is your strength. I tried so many different sports. It wasn't just snowboarding. Before snowboarding, I'd gone through 10 different sports.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So and with that, it was not those different sports helped me find what I was really good at, and then also they build up my body awareness, and I learned to use my body as a tool in a different way. And then it just happened to line up for snowboarding. I mean, I tried skateboarding and I still suck at it. And some of my friends who they were okay snowboarders, but then they got way good at skateboarding or some other sport.
Interesting.
So I think that's one thing. And then there's the whole thing of success. Now everyone thinks that they need to become famous and successful, and that that's that's where happiness is. But I think Jim Carrey said something that he hopes that everyone will get rich and famous to realize that that's not the answer.
Right.
So,
interesting.
So I think it is good to have goals and vision. Like when I was snowboarding and when I was just learning to snowboard, I was learning those skills when I went to the slopes. But then whenever I was not in the slopes, I was always like, when we were driving, my family went visit somewhere and I was sitting in a car, and on the side of the road there's the ditch. So I imagined that the ditch was the half pipe, and I was always imagining doing all these tricks. So I was visualizing and doing training and sort of priming my body, and I was figuring like, all right, if I do the Mac twist or whatever, like I need to put my hand like this and I turn my head. So that's like you're practicing a trick.
In your mind.
Exactly. And that's the one thing that nobody talks about, because that part it's invisible, it's in your head.
Right.
But it's a crucial part to becoming good at anything, that you need to be able to, like, you can't come up with a product like this unless maybe you buy a product from someone else and then sell it, but you need to imagine it. Like Steve Jobs had a vision of iPhone in his head before they drew it up, before they built the prototypes, before they went to production and all that. So you sort of need to have the vision here, and then you go forward. But also, going back to happiness, there's an amazing copywriter. His name is Cole Schaefer. He runs this website called honeycopy.com. I suggest that everyone goes check that out, because he's really good and you'll learn a lot from him. But he said that, or he wrote that humans have the propensity to believe that heaven is wherever they are not. So, we're always chasing that goal, that dream, that, I want to become like a superstar entrepreneur or a celebrity or whatever dreams you have, thinking that that's when I'm going to be happy. But once you get there, or before you even get there, you're going to move that goalpost, and then you forgot that was your goal and you're chasing again.
Right.
So you need to learn to love the chase, and not the end result, because there is no ending. There's only the game over when life leaves us. So
yeah.
So you need to love that.
Fall in love with the process, but not the end goal.
Yeah, and you need to celebrate. Like I forget to celebrate small successes. And if you don't celebrate your successes and you're just grinding, then you're gonna be like, you might be miserable the whole time you do it. And then when you actually reach the goal you had originally, you've forgotten about it. You've set new goals. You're just miserable.
Or you realize that this is not what you wanted at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good point, because when you have a vision for something,
right,
you don't know what it's going to be like, because you've never been there. You never traveled, you never made the journey, and you never felt it. So you've just seen it, maybe a YouTube person is your idol, that you want to be an influencer, or someone in YouTube showed that they achieved all of these amazing things, but what they sacrificed during that journey
is not shown.
Yeah, exactly. You only see what's happening in front of the curtain, but you don't see what the backstage is like, because the backstage might be like, there's chaos going on. They have the worst relationships. They're drug addicts and whatever. But on the outside, they have a nice Lamborghini and whatever.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. What advice would you give to someone who has a dream and wants to go after that dream, but is afraid of some kind of fear? Perhaps he's afraid of being criticized by his family or by his friends, or someone might tell him that, hey, listen, don't go after that dream because there's no money to be made. Perhaps he wants to be an actor or something else, or whatever it is. Maybe someone is telling them something. So what advice would you give? Because obviously being a pro snowboarder, that's not that you hear people choosing as a career path every single day. So that's something like kind of special in my opinion, and I think the audience might be sharing that views as well. But what advice would you give to someone who wants to go after the dream, but they're afraid of some kind of criticism or something else?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty common thing. Like when I work with athletes, when I do mental coaching with athletes, they say that some people come to me and they're like, hey, really bugs me that when I'm in a contest, I think of all the things that other people think of me, how they're criticizing me or whatnot. So firstly, there are going to be people in your life that might be really close, your family, your friends, the people you work with, who, when you go after your big dream or whatever and you tell them about it, they might not be supportive. They might criticize you for it and they might judge you for it. And the first thing you need to understand is that most of them do it because they want to, they don't want to see you hurt. Your family doesn't want to see you fail big time or lose all your money or get injured if you're an athlete. That's totally understandable. Your family loves you and they don't want bad things to happen to you. But obviously, in order to grow, you need to make mistakes and you need to fall down and pick yourself up. And the other thing is that, if you go to online, there are people envy you for trying things that they might want to try, but they've been too afraid to try or whatever reason. So there's always going to be people pulling you down. And, I know that I pulled people down. So I think it's important to maybe, I don't know if it's like a human thing to do that. You don't want to see others get away. And, maybe your friends are afraid that they're going to lose you as one of their great friends. If you go after your dream, you move a different country and they're never going to see you again. But then the other thing is that you shouldn't listen to them. But you need to understand them.
Okay.
So I think that's important.
So understand, but don't listen.
Yeah, you make your own judgments because you probably spend more time thinking about how am I going to become an entrepreneur, and you might more know about it. And I think there is it is whenever you're going after a dream, a big dream that you've never done before, you are being naive, and I think it's important. You don't know how hard it is. It's going to be ridiculously hard, most likely.
If you knew, you wouldn't start it in the first place.
So there is a need for being naive and just I'm going to go for this ridiculous dream. When I started snowboarding, there are not very many Finnish professional snowboarders. So it was pretty much considered that you're an idiot. You're crazy. That's impossible.
Right.
And so the other thing is that you need to make yourself lucky, but luck plays the role in anything. If you want to become successful at something, luck is going to play a significant role. Whoever is successful and says luck never had any part of it, they don't know what they're talking about.
Or they forget that actually luck had some kind of part on it.
Exactly. They're just looking at the road from having traveled it, and then they just choose the things that they...
But then also, I'm going to interrupt you here about the luck. I really like this saying that it goes that, luck is when the preparation meets opportunity. So, I mean, you can wait for luck to come, but then whenever you're going to be faced with an opportunity, you are not going to be prepared, so you're not going to be able to execute. And so kind of that's an interesting philosophy, how luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah, I can totally sign that, because absolutely, if you don't have the skills when the opportunity shows up, then you can't deliver, you can't utilize that opportunity and take advantage of it. Right. So for sure. Interesting.
All right, next question. So what is the single most important thing that being a pro snowboarder has taught you?
Yeah, so I think snowboarding taught me so many things, and is still teaching me 12 years after the fact. But one of the things, when you are becoming, or when you're an athlete, and especially as a snowboarder, you fall a lot. The first years that you're snowboarding, you're constantly falling. And I think the people who fall more than others are going to be the ones who will have a better chance of succeeding at it, and not just people who fall once or fall more, but people who learn to fall, because falling is a crucial part of snowboarding.
Right.
If you have a bag of tricks of say 1,000 different tricks, for every one of those tricks to learn, it took you probably some of the tricks it might have taken 1,000 times for you to get repetitions, or 1,000 repetitions for you to learn it, to be able to do the trick.
Wow.
And then you're gonna need to learn to fall gracefully, because if you don't know how to fall, you're gonna hurt yourself, and then you're either gonna get disencouraged by getting hurt, or you get hurt so bad that you can't continue. So you need to be able to learn how to fall gracefully so you can pick yourself up and do it again. So I think that same goes to any career. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a writer or whatever, you need to understand that mistakes is part of it. It is not like an optional part of the process.
Right.
It is part of the process, and it is a crucial part of the process. So whenever I would practice a new trick, after the trick and I fell, after the trick and on the way back on top of the hill in the ski lift, I would think like, all right, like what did I do wrong? Like how do I need to tweak my body differently when I'm taking off or landing or in the air? So you need to analyze what you made wrong, but then when you actually do land it, you really need to dissect like what did you do differently. And I think there's like two views. I remember Elon Musk was talking about this one time, like there is a probabilistic way of thinking, and then opportunistic, or what was it? Like you can have, so there's probabilistic thinking and then maybe opportunistic thinking or whatever the other was. But the concept is that sometimes you just need to keep repeating it. You just, you need enough repetitions. You need to do enough marketing for enough people to hear that they start to come to you.
Right.
And sometimes you need to do something completely different. The thing you've been doing doesn't working, change it, do something else.
But how does the person know when he should continue trying whatever is not working, and then how does he know when he needs to just like switch? So say for example, someone watching this is going to be like, all right, I'm going to do e-commerce, and he's been trying for like a year. Is that enough time, or like how does he know?
I think that's a great question that I still ask and I have no answer to. Right. I may have a half an answer, but so how do you know like when, and this is like, how do you know when you quit your company, when you call it that this is not working? Because I know people who've been running a company for their whole life and they're absolutely miserable. They haven't been able to get it out of the ground, and they're still doing it because they've invested so much into it that they can't let go of it.
There's a psychological thing that, they've invested so much that they can just like have all those resources go to waste.
Exactly. And so like, when do you know when should you do something different? I think one thing is that never try things like once or twice, because you don't, if you read a book and then you go and apply it, you can't like expect to, be able to get results out of it. You need to do the reps to gain enough skill. In snowboarding, it was easy because you would land the trick. But in some things in entrepreneurship, like you can measure that whether your ad is gaining enough traction. Right. Then you can A/B test if it's your headline that's not working, or if it's your audience that's wrong. But I think you should ask from people who are better than you and who are already successful. Maybe there is no universal answer, but they can give you sort of ideas that what you might be doing wrong and what you might be doing right. So I think that's the best answer that I can give you.
Right. No, that's great. And so let's switch now to your second dream, right? So you said your second dream was to be able to draw anything from your imagination, right? Now, after you have retired from snowboarding in 2008, you pursued your second dream. And so can you talk a little bit about that? And then, we can also, the question kind of behind this is that how does one completely shift his work? Like, what advice would you give to someone who is doing one thing now, but then he's thinking about doing something completely different that is not related to this? So this shifts between one and another. Like, what advice would you give? Because obviously you went from one to another.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can tell you the mistake that I did here. So, I built like a career of snowboarding. I was a professional snowboarder for 8 years. And I built, I spent 7 years before that, before I became a pro. So I'd spent 15 years in that sort of career. And then I changed into a completely different industry. So one of the mistakes that I did was, I built up all of these connections with people, which I think is crucial to being, gaining some kind of success, is knowing people who can help you and who you can help and serve. So one of the mistakes was that I completely ditched everything that I'd done, and I started something completely new. So if you're changing something completely, try to see how you can bring that bag of learning and the assets that you've spent building all that time. Yeah, people, and it might be skills, it might be something else. Try to see how you can bring that so you don't start from ground zero, because that's like, then you're gonna spend another 10 years learning the skills, meeting the right people, and all that stuff. So it's gonna be a really long road. And for me, it was pretty humbling that I'd been one of the top snowboarders in the world to start drawing, which I couldn't do, drawing stick figures. And the kids in the school were 10 years younger than me and 10 times better than me. Wow. So it was like a really humbling experience. I mean, I'd gotten a little bit heady or big-headed with snowboarding, right, that, I'd been very successful. But it was a really good opportunity, because most people, you might be sort of hit the success that you want once in a lifetime. But then with that success, like being a celebrity, comes all kinds of other things that gets into your head. But then if you're doing another round of being successful at something else, you've already seen a lot of the mistakes that are going to come up in your new journey. Right. So with drawing, being able to draw anything from my imagination, my goal was to do concept design for Hollywood movies, and I think this repeating the repetition here from snowboarding is that in snowboarding you want to get good, you needed to do a lot of repetitions to learn the tricks. Yeah. Same goes to drawing, and I think everything else is that you cannot shortcut mileage. Like with drawing, what I tried to do, like I couldn't focus for 15 minutes to do drawing at first. It was sucked because I was really bad at it and I couldn't get the results. I was looking at all my idols and they did these amazing drawings and amazing paintings and designs, and all I could do was like stick figures, and I really sucked. So it was really hard to, I wasn't having fun and I was doing these repetitions. So again, you kind of you need to find a way to make it fun, and making it fun, it's easier to do it with friends. Right. So again, you cannot shortcut putting in the effort. Yeah. I tried to do that. I tried to find ways how I could learn things faster. There are all these courses on how you can become fast learner, which I think is great, but don't waste too much time into thinking like, how are you, gonna find a shortcut? In life, there are no shortcuts.
That's a good one. There are no shortcuts in life.
There is no shortcuts. And actually, if you are taking a shortcut, you're gonna end up taking a detour. So me trying to look for the shortcuts and taking time away from doing the work actually prolonged me from getting better and building those skills. So I think shortcut is an illusion that it's easy to sell that because people, we want the shortcut, we want it now. It's that I want the instant gratification, I want to get there faster.
Yeah.
But as we talked earlier, you know, it's about long game.
Yeah.
Because
Long term.
yeah, if you want the shortcut, if you want the results now, you're going to be so antsy and you're going to be so upset when you're not getting those results.
Yeah.
But if you play the long game, like, all right, I'm going to be good at this in 10 years, then it's like, you know, a big rock is going to fall off your shoulders because you don't have that pressure. Obviously, pressure can help you, but it can create a lot of like negative stress. You know, there's eustress, which is a good stress, which will push you. But if you're constantly stressing yourself out and not, you know, fueling up your gas tank, you're gonna run out of gas and motivation, and then you're in the middle of nowhere. It's gonna long ass walk to get back to the gas station. So sort of, you know, you gotta stay motivated and have fun. Because it's a long path.
Yeah. So there's actually this concept that I wanted to add. It's called the 10 dark years, where it took famous people, you know, Picasso and Bill Gates, about 10 years to actually get from zero to their ultimate, like, to becoming a master basically of their craft. So that's what I wanted to add. And also coming back to that thing you talked about, the shortcuts, I thought it was also interesting to add a little bit specific for my audience here. So in this whole e-com space, there are these people who advertise this idea that they are basically going to do everything for you. It's a shortcut. So they're going to set up the website. They're going to run the ads for you. They're going to test the products, basically do everything for you. And all you have to do is just give them $3,000 per month. That includes the ad spend and their fee for running this thing. And they're going to make you rich. Like, that's kind of what they're selling, right? And I haven't tried this myself, but I think this like framework of not taking shortcuts applies in this particular situation. So if you're like wondering of doing this, or if you've been exposed to like some kind of people who sell you on that idea, I would recommend you stay away from that and instead just do it yourself. You know, it's gonna be harder, but that is exactly what you want to do, because hard is what makes it great. So you mentioned that you had a hard time focusing for 15 minutes and then you were able to focus for 100-hour weeks and draw. So what advice would you give to someone who feels that they have a hard time focusing on one thing at a time?
That's a great question. I think that's the question of the life, of the modern life right now, because, you know, we are bombarded by, you know, distractions from all over the place. Glad we put our phones on silent right now, because they would be beeping all over the place. You know, a mentor once told me that when you have too many options, you need to have a skill or a process to reduce your options.
Right.
Because otherwise you're gonna be fatigued. There's some kind of a saying for this too, but you're gonna be option fatigue. You can't make, when you have too many options presented, you can't make a choice. You can't make a decision. So then you're gonna end up like, gonna end up snacking on these things and you never get anything done. So one technique that I've used as an entrepreneur is the Pomodoro method, and those of you, many of you probably have heard of it because it is so good. It's hard to do, but it can really help you develop that discipline. And to make another point before we go to Pomodoro is that, you know, when you start anything new, it might not be so fun and you're failing and you're not getting the results you want. That, you know, obviously can be very discouraging. So you kind of like, you need to learn to love the process, no matter how gruesome it might be, because there's never gonna be the end of this thing. You're never gonna end up to that happiness goal or whatever it is. So if you learn to love the process, then you're going to be happy while getting there, while reaching your goal, instead of being miserable until you get to the goal, which you don't even know how it's going to be like because you've never been there. So So you need to learn to reduce your options. And that's really hard because we look at YouTube and we have all these web shops that we can, with one click, go and buy a skill, a course that will essentially give you the skills. So you have these options to, anything is possible. The whole world is open to you if you just have the money and time and energy. But you know, if you're studying everything, you're not learning anything because you're not going.
Ooh, that's gold right there.
You're not going deep enough, you know.
Yeah.
You're just like snacking on the superficial things, but you're not eating the full meal. So what I used was this Pomodoro method, and it's basically you get an egg timer, and I don't like to use my phone because once you look at your phone, you're sucked in there and you can't get out.
That's so true, my God. It's just the way it's designed, that thing, huh?
It is designed that way.
It's just like, even I have no notifications turned on, like none, except for one, Shopify, the ka-ching sound, because I'm addicted to that thing. But anyway, no notification sounds, and still, if I'm like opening it up, I just get sucked into some kind of application or whatever, or even just scrolling through it. It's insane.
Yeah, and then you forget what you were even doing. Like,
Exactly.
what did I even get on my phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then the internet is another rabbit hole that you can get sucked into. So you want to get rid of those. Like, first of all, like you said, turn off notifications on your phone. The only thing I get notification from is when someone is calling me.
Yeah.
So I have to apologize people that I didn't respond to them in time, because people expect that you know, reply in a matter of seconds.
They say that it's better to apologize than to try and please everyone.
Exactly, for sure. So like remove notifications, and then the Pomodoro is you get an egg timer. I like to use a physical egg timer. So it's one of those things that you use in the kitchen to time your food. So you twist it. I do it now for like, I turn it on for 30 minutes. And then I write down on one single piece of Post-it note, I write down the one thing I'm going to focus on right now. So make it specific. So maybe it's like creating an ad copy or creating the headline for the ad. And then for 30 minutes, I can hear the ticking sound. First it was annoying because it's ticking all the time, but then it became this like a reminder that this is my sacred time that I'm dedicating to this one task, and I'm trying to finish this task or get as far as I can with that one task in 30 minutes. And then after the timer rings, then you see where you came up, you take a 5-minute break, and you get back into this. The original, I think, the idea is that you focus for 50 minutes, you take a 10-minute break, you focus another 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, and then you take a longer break. So it's like 50, 10, 50, 30. And then during that 30 minutes, you drink, you eat something, you put some good vitamins and good food in your system, so your brain is getting the nutrients it needs to continue. But I do it for 30 minutes, and then I might take a 5-minute break. And when you take that break, you should do something completely else. And while you might feel like, oh, I'm falling off the flow, but when you get into this, that 5 minutes, you're gonna. So there's a saying that Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote the book.
Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
There we go. Who wrote the book Flow?
Yeah.
It's a legendary book on flow.
Amazing book.
So I think he did some studies, or he quoted studies that your mind can hold 7 plus minus 2 things. Like your conscious mind can keep 7 plus minus 2 things up at one time. But then your unconscious mind can do like 40,000 calculations at a single moment.
Wow.
I may be quoting this a little bit wrong, but it's something like that.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to solve a thing, you have that 30 or 50 minute that you're focused on one thing, and you take that 5 or 10 minute break, then you're giving your unconscious mind the opportunity to solve the problem for you. And that's why you want to do something completely else. Do push-ups, go for a walk, Go lay down, and if you've been working on your computer, do something completely else. If your work is to do fitness workouts, then go reading, and don't read about the subject. Read something completely else. And the idea is to get your mind out of the task you're doing. Take a shower. Why do we get great ideas in shower?
I was just about to say that.
Because we take that freaking break that our brain needs, our conscious needs.
I came to a point where I take a notebook into the shower. Well, not into the shower, but I put it in the bathroom, because I get at least one idea per each shower session. And then when I leave, right away, I dry my hand first thing, and I scribble down the idea, and boom, that's said and done. When I write it down, I have it. If I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna dry my hair, dry my body, and then I'll go, lost. After your knee injury, you started the concept design. You started studying that, and you've also started to learn about mental training. So can you tell us what is mental training, and how can it help someone who is trying to achieve high results?
Good question. So the first time I came into touch with mental training was, I remember I was reading a magazine, a snowboard magazine, and someone wrote a really short article about mental training and how that might help me get results in snowboarding, how I could get better. So I sent an email to the person who wrote the article, and I asked her what resources she might give me, and she wrote a book about mental training for sports, and I bought the book, and I started using that in my snowboarding because if we talk about sports, people think that it's learning those skills like snowboard skills or soccer skills or whatever sports you're doing, that's like the golden, that's the grail, the holy grail into becoming better. But most people don't realize that it's not, you learn skills by looking at other people, dissecting what they do, and then having people teach you what they do. So that's how and then you practice to get, the repetitions and to learn to do it. But then people forget that it's not the skills always that will stop them from progressing, but it's the fears. It's, what if I do this trick and I get hurt? What will other people think of me if I fail at this entrepreneur thing?
And you're priming yourself for failure by thinking those thoughts. So if we refer this back to entrepreneurship, people have these limiting beliefs in their heads that, because I come from, a poor background, or because I have, something, right? They have these limiting beliefs that they won't be able to achieve something in their life. And so those limiting beliefs, I feel like they are not allowing the person to achieve their full potential, right? Can mental training help those people who have those limiting beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. And we all have them, and we inherit them from the people that are around us. And I think it's important to understand that you can change, and then recognizing what are the limiting beliefs, and then having some tools to overcome them. Often to us, we're not able to see those because they're so part of us that we don't even notice. But then I think that's why having mentors who can spot those, and then who have ways of telling stories and reframing your limiting beliefs, so you realize that, hey, this limiting belief might actually be a strength and not a limiting belief, then that is going to help you. So it's kind of like mental training is for the invisible handcuffs that we all have. So first you might become aware of them, but then you don't have the tools to unlock them.
Right.
And then when you have someone who can see your invisible handcuffs, and then have the keys that we can work on to unlock them to help you reach your fuller potential, then yeah, definitely. I mean, because we're all going through life with here's the stuff. The thing inside between our ears is the part that will make us move our hands. We'll go outside and meet new people, even though we're afraid, or we go sell whatever we're selling, and are not afraid to pick up the phone and make the sales call, or whatever fears we have. You know, learning how to overcome those happens here.
Yeah.
But it also happens here, like, you know, if we need to sell something, selling is a skill. You can learn it from books, and a book can reframe a thing for you to overcome that limiting belief as well. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah. With your enthusiasm and your passion for mental training, you actually created a company called formsupreme.com, which is an online mental training business. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so after I retired from snowboarding, I started designing. I went for learning how to become a concept designer for Hollywood movies, until I realized that that profession is not serving me in a way that I would like to. And I had studied mental training when I was snowboarding. I'd use a sports psychologist to get better results and overcome some fears. Fly. I think you got it.
Maybe.
Good job. So what was the question?
The question was, can you elaborate on your company, formsupreme.com?
Yeah. So that was like, I'd already been part of like, I think 4 or 6 different companies at this point. We've started companies with my friends who didn't succeed. And then I started formsupreme.com to help athletes and entrepreneurs to overcome, mainly for athletes, to overcome the mental obstacles that they were facing, so they could, you know, do the thing they wanted and have more fun. And when I started that company, I'd never studied any business stuff.
Right.
So I went into and bought this big online training thing, and I'm really glad that I did, because, you know, you don't have to learn everything by yourself and by mistake, but you can go in and sort of, like earlier I said, you can buy all these skills by just, you know, buying a course. So obviously you need to apply and build the skill, but it was really good because it was this huge library of like sales, copywriting, how do you build a product, how do you understand your customers, whose problem you're solving and goals you're helping it to achieve. So it had all of these really good building blocks for your business. So that's when I really got into studying business and marketing, sales, product research, all this stuff. And then I put into practice what I learned, and then the instant result is that, or I'm not getting sales. And then you're trying to decipher, like, why am I not selling? Why is this thing not working? And so I encourage anyone who is learning how to do this entrepreneur stuff is to study with others, from others, with friends, and like don't expect that you will do it so quick. It's gonna take time, because you need to fail again. You need to fall a lot and learn to pick yourself up. And if you try a thing once or twice or 10 times, don't expect to get results. You have to do it quite a lot usually to start getting better. So I think that the smart thing that I did was that I studied a lot of things from people who were successful, and that helped me sort of start to gain the skills.
Right. So you were working on Form Supreme for quite a while.
Yeah, I did that for like 3.5 years till I ran out of money and health. Okay. Which is an interesting story, but yeah, I mean, all of that time I learned so much.
So what advice?
What advice for
someone who is starting an online business?
So I think the advice would be to find some resource where you can learn these skills, and then set your expectations, as in, you know, I've failed, I think 7 businesses so far.
That's good.
So maybe, you know, obviously some people hit it, they get it from their family, they studied business, their whole family is a business oriented, so they've learned a lot from there. I didn't have any of that, so I'm starting from like a blank sheet of paper. Yeah. So get a resource where you can learn the skills, then set your expectations that this is going to take a long time, and the likelihood of being successful is quite thin. Yeah. Just because when you know, I think if you listen to a lot of this raw talk or successful entrepreneurs, they tell you that you need to set up these super big goals, like aim for the stars and at least you end up in the moon, and not if you aim for moon you end up in the mud. So I think I kind of say the opposite. Like, if you set these ridiculous expectations that you're gonna be the next Elon Musk, or you're gonna sell out $100 million company in 1 year, like, there's only one Elon Musk, there was only one Steve Jobs, there are only a handful of like really, okay, there is, I don't know how many people in the world. Out of that there are, some maybe hundreds of thousands of successful entrepreneurs, but it's like to say that it's like really hard, and that setting up those high expectations might set you up for failure, and that you're going to be miserable the whole way you try to get there. And instead, like, it's actually, I don't think it's bad to set low expectations, because think about a day. If you set up like this, if your to-do list is like an endless to-do list, and you sort of have this mentality that I need to finish up my to-do list, but you never get it done, so you're never going to be satisfied of what you achieved during that day. Yeah. So you're always like, fuck, I got so many, sorry. Yeah. You got so many things to do, and it never ends. So instead, like, you need to learn to first of all love the process, and then like game your to-do list that you can be successful every day.
Yeah.
Like, make it so short that if you do one thing and you're successful doing that one thing, then you're done. Like, that's it. I can put my pen and paper on the desk and I'm done. And then if you do that one thing, make sure it's the frog. It's the one that you don't want to, Brian Tracy has this book called Eat the Frog First, because it's the most disgusting thing, the thing you don't want to do. Because a big mistake that I've done as an entrepreneur many times, I do the things that I'm good at, that are my strengths. I love doing them because I get good results. Yeah. I hate doing the other stuff. I'm not a good salesman, so I move that for later. I get some sales fears. So, like, if you postpone that thing, nobody's going to buy your thing, so you're never going to get that success. So do the most uncomfortable thing at first. It is super hard. It's the most effective thing you can do to get results.
That's interesting. And I would also add to this that perhaps you mentioned that there's a very thin chance of anyone who's starting an online business at success. But I want to say that there's still a chance, and it's still there. And one of the things that separates those who get there and who don't is dedication. So you said, you failed 7 times, but it doesn't mean you're stopping. You're still going, So you just have to expect, like Jussi said, that you're going to fail, problems are going to arise, and your thing, as cliche as it sounds, but dedication is key. Like, you fail, just get up, all right, no problem, I'm going to do this. And eventually, nature is going to be like, okay, this motherfucker is so persistent that just let him have what he wants, and just, like, I don't want to deal with him anymore, And the second thing you also said was about the long term and having a short to-do list and just kind of getting it done for the day. So that's something that I had a problem when I was first starting out, is that I was putting all of these things on a paper that I wanted to get done in a single day tomorrow. And then the next day comes, you sit down and you try, and you start with the first one, and the day ends and you still haven't completed that one thing, or you're just like finishing it up, and then you have all these other things on your paper that you haven't crossed out. So the point here is that you're in this for the long term. This is not a race. This is a marathon. I mean, it's not like you want to sprint for a year. It doesn't work like that. The way it works like this, just with anything in nature, is that you're in this for a long term, for a long run. Things take a lot of time, and that in order to grow that mango tree, if we refer back to Ezra, that is going to feed you for a lifetime, you need to really take your time, because mango trees take a lot of time to grow, but once they are in full fruition, they're going to feed you for a lifetime. And same applies to business. So try and be sustainable when it comes to your work. If you have decided that, okay, online business is the thing, is my thing, because you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. So if you decide that, okay, online business is going to my thing, which I'm going to dedicate my life to, and I'm going to crack the code, and I'm going to get good at it, then once you have decided that, don't put pressure on yourself to try and do everything in one day, because you just physically won't be able to do that. Instead, try and be smart about it, try and learn as much as possible, and try to develop the sustainable system where you're going to be doing at least a little bit, but you're going to be doing every single day. That's the key to it. Every single day, Same applies to the gym, right? I've had some success with the gym. I really enjoyed doing it. And by the way, oh man, this rant is too long. Coming back to the thing you were talking about, falling in love with the process. I totally agree with that. When I was first starting gymming, my end goal was to become buff, to be in good shape, because that's what I wanted to do. And that was my initial motivation to start going to the gym. But then going towards that goal, I actually started to understand that it's not the end goal, but rather the process of getting there. And now I believe that I got that goal that I wanted to initially, but I didn't stop here. I continue going to the gym every second day just because I really enjoy the process, and because my mentality has changed so much in regards to that I no longer go to the gym to achieve that end goal. Instead, I go to the gym because I love to move my body. I love to engage my body in physical exercise. And probably the same things applies to business. It's not the end goal of, selling out or making $1 million or $1 billion or whatever it is. It's just the process of creating good products, of satisfying your customers, of serving other people. I can say one more thing, but I don't want to do Okay. We were talking as well about earlier, I remember how I told you, okay, so this is something, do I have still time? Yeah, I think I still have time. So when I was first starting out with business, earlier Jussi and I were talking, we were driving the car, that when I was starting business, I didn't understand what do people get paid for? How is money generated? From what? Why? Why does some business generate more money and the other less? And recently, there was this big paradigm shift, or this mental shift in my head, and this is what really triggered it. So imagine you are dropped off in one of the poorest parts of the world, somewhere in a village where there is absolutely it's very poor, there's nothing, and you have nothing on you as well. You don't have a phone, no money. All you have is just your body, your mind, and just a piece of cloth over you. And the question is, how would you survive? And so one of the logical things about how would you survive is you would look for people, and you would come up to those people and you would ask them, how can I help you? You'd be you'd find a lady who's carrying some heavy things, and you'd ask her, excuse me, can I please help you carry these things back home? And you wouldn't tell her okay, I'm gonna carry this for you and then you'll give me money. You wouldn't do that, right? Because you're in a desperate situation. So you would first offer her help, and then you would hope that when you have served that woman, she is going to return your favor with, maybe some bread or money. And that's kind of the framework that you want to apply when you're doing, online business. You want to try and serve your customers first, and then in exchange for that, that's when you want to, take the money. Because most people, they just send traffic to the product page, right? And I've been guilty of that as well. And then they're wondering, why is no one converting? Well, the reason no one is converting is because when you send people to a product page and you're asking them to give you money, well, that works, but the conversion rate is going to be so low, because it's the same thing as meeting a woman at a bar and asking her, hey, do you want to marry me? Probably not. You know, so the same thing here. First you want your customers to get to know you. Then you want to offer them some kind of content or some kind of, you know, helpful information. And then later on, once you've served them enough and they've established trust with you, that's when you know, can ask them for the sale.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a value exchange.
Yeah.
You give them something that they value, and then it's before, like, all the marketing is about building trust. All the part of sales is building trust, that the person, you show them that you can actually, you know, you understand them, but with your copywriting, you know, you tell them the problem that they have and the goals that they can have in a way that is different from others and that is believable. And then you will continue telling that in your copy, that you talk about the problems they have, the goals this product or service will help them reach, and you're building that trust by expressing that you've heard them, you listen to them, and this is what I got to offer. Yeah. And then once they build enough trust, then they are willing to give you the money that you will give them what you promised. Exactly. And then if your product is and your service is what you said it is, and it solves their problem and helps them reach their goal, then, you know, you get repeat buys. But then if you failed, if you had all these crazy promises but none of them are true,
you didn't deliver.
Yeah, then your business is gonna run very short, because, you know, they didn't get what they wanted, they're never going to talk to anyone again about it, or they're going to, you know, smack talk your product or your service because you're stealing from people. Exactly. Essentially. So
if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people, and that's how you're going to get the $1 million.
Yeah, and tell me the quote you talked about Elon Musk, about the problems and the...
Oh yeah, so this is something that I've heard someone say, that you get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of the problem that you solve. And that is a quote by Elon Musk. And I think it's quite applicable. Not always, you know, there are some exceptions to the rule, but generally, you know, the harder the problem you solve for people, and for the more people, the more you get paid. You know, so take Elon Musk, for example. He's, you know, building electric cars. He's launching rockets into space that are able to land back. You know, he built PayPal. Everyone uses PayPal. So and you know, his net worth is now, I think, close to like 100 billion or something.
And also good to know that he's doing a good job branding that Elon Musk is the person doing all the things. He always talks about that he's the person, sort of, but obviously he is not. He's got an amazing team and amazing people who work for him. So, you know, yeah. It's always, you know, a team effort.
Of course. A business is simply a team of people who are working towards the same direction, who are rowing in the same direction, who have a vision. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna round this part of the video here, but we have another phase, another part of the video where Jussi and I are going to be cooking, preparing a nice meal, which is going to be our dinner. And we want to share that part with you as well. So we invite you to join us at the kitchen where we are going to be cooking. And besides cooking, we're also going to be talking about Jussi's later parts where he is traveling, where he is working on a new project. So if you want to hear more about that, then make sure you still until the end of the video,
where I will reveal how I got to work alongside Scarlett Johansson. George, what are we cooking today?
Today,
Chef George.
Today you and I are going to prepare rice, basmati rice. We're gonna fry some fish, and we're also going to do the salad, which hopefully you are going to take care of.
I hope so too.
Right.
I feel like I'm in some kind of a cooking show. So.
All right, let's get started. So if you could please start just chopping up the vegetables, putting it all together, and I'm going to start on my side here. So we just take a cup of rice. It's important to clean the rice, so we're just going to do that.
Nice.
So tell me, in 2015, you moved to New Zealand, right? Where you worked on a $150 million Hollywood movie alongside Scarlett Johansson, right?
That is correct.
So that is very interesting. Tell me.
Yeah, so why did we move to New Zealand? So I had been, when I was snowboarding, New Zealand was a really big deal to go snowboard there during the summer, because they have the winter when we have the summer, and the other way around.
Yeah.
So, but I never ended up going there, and so that was sort of a dream that I never got to fulfill, and it was at the back of my head still. And I also, when I studied concept design for Hollywood movies, there's a company called Weta Workshops that does a lot of the concept design and visual effects, not sure visual effects, but prosthetics and stuff for, and physical stuff for the movies. Like they did stuff for Lord of the Rings, like all the big movies they've been like working heavily on.
That's in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's a New Zealand company there in Wellington, New Zealand. And so I had these two things at the back of my mind, and I was running my Form Supreme company full on. And we had, my spouse and I, we lived in an apartment, and we had a plumbing renovation coming to the apartment. So that usually means that you need to move out for 3 months to half a year to a year. So we were like, well, what are we gonna do if we are going to move out of the apartment? Like, where are we gonna go? So first we were like, well, hey, like, instead of just moving to a new apartment, let's move abroad for that time.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Because I was running an online business, didn't matter where I would work, and then my spouse, she started studying online, so we could sort of move anywhere. And first we were like, well, let's go to Portugal, because that's going to be, we could surf, and it would be a nice weather. But then I did some research and realized that Portugal during the winter may not be the nicest place to move to. While it would be nice, maybe not the best choice. And then we realized that, hey, well, if we're gonna like fly out of Finland, then it doesn't really matter where we fly. Like, so what if we, if you fly 3 hours to Portugal, or if you fly 30 hours to New Zealand, we could go there.
Yeah.
So then we're like, well, let's go. Packed our things, put them in a storage, got visas to New Zealand.
You get a visa for New Zealand?
Yeah, as a Finnish person, you can get visa to New Zealand for free for a year if you're under 35. So that was great. We moved there, and I kept working on my online business. We traveled.
How did that go, by the way?
What's that?
How did that go, by the way, working on your online business while you're away from home? Because for me, right, that's kind of one of my goals, to be able to run my business from anywhere in the world, right? But I'm a little bit concerned about because I have a set routine here at home. I wake up at a certain time, I go to bed at a certain time, I have certain food every day, and I don't think about these things. I don't think about what I'm gonna eat, where I'm gonna go to the gym. Like, everything is just such a routine that I get to spend quite a bit of time thinking about my business and stuff like that. So how was it working away from your usual routine? Yeah,
I think that's a good question, and you bring up some important points to touch on. Is that, well, obviously, when you come to a new country, you need to set things up there so you're comfortable. Like, you can do your thing. So we spent the first week in an Airbnb, so we could find a place to rent. We could buy a car, and just get ourselves accommodated in the place. So and then find a gym and all that jazz. So it does take a little bit of time, and then obviously food might be a little bit different. You're like, where am I gonna shop? What am I gonna cook? But you get into the rhythm like pretty quick. And I think one key thing is flexibility. Like, I used to be like, when you start something, you're just trying to get things done. When I started drawing, I was like, oh, I can't even draw for 15 minutes. But then you get disciplined and you get good at it, and then you can draw for 100 hours.
Yeah.
But then you end up in this other spectrum where you're overworking yourself. You've gotten so good at getting results that you love it and you can't stop doing it. So you're doing too much. And then that leads to burnout, and it leads to, your results starts to decrease. You're not getting as good results because you're overworking yourself. So that's not something you can sustain.
Right.
So the other end is that you get into this, you have this amazing morning routine, but then you're like super locked on your routine, and you're sort of like, what's the word? Like, you can't, if you don't have your routine, then you can't do it.
You're not like efficient.
Yeah.
Right.
So then the next level to that, I think, is that, if you have gotten really good at doing your work, is that you've gotten almost too good at doing your work. So you need to learn how to pace yourself. And that's like the next level. So with having your routine, I think the next thing is that being able to be flexible with your routine.
Okay.
And that's like, I used to have this thing that I need to go to the gym at 10 a.m. If it's a little bit too late, a little bit too early, then it doesn't work out.
Right.
So I needed to learn how to let go of that and become more flexible.
Right.
Bamboo as a tree is very flexible, and it bends in the biggest of storms, and it grows really tall. But then you have this like old oak trees that grow really, really tall and strong, but then they don't bend at all, so they break in like heavy storms. But then, so you need to kind of like be able to work with the storm or work with the waves if you're in the ocean, and not against them if you're a surfer.
Yeah.
You need to learn to take advantage of the waves and not try to work against them. So and the other thing, when you move to a new country, it's like you and I, when you get into your rhythm, your groove, you're in this bubble. You're in this sort of zone.
Yeah.
And you get blind to a lot of things because you only see things that are normal to you. So when you come to a new country, you see so many more opportunities because everything is new. You're like, whoa, this is all like so crazy cool, and you see all these opportunities. And then you start getting into your routine. You have the same route you take to the gym and all this stuff, and you start building this bubble, and things become sort of more rigid and not as, things that you can like do. It's a weird thing, but it was an amazing to go to a new country where everything is new, and you just have more opportunities. You're more hopeful. So that was like the first experience, and then there's the crazy story of how did I get to work on this, like one of the like bigger Hollywood movies, like with a.
So what was that movie called?
It's called Ghost in the Shell. So basically, that was an anime movie that was made in the 90s, and then they were making an live action remake out of that movie, and there was Scarlett Johansson was the lead actress, and then there was Pilou Asbæk from he's been in Game of Thrones, and a bunch of other like super big name actors, and the way that happened, it's kind of like luck presented itself, or opportunity presented itself, and I happened to be lucky. So we'd been already in New Zealand for 6 months. And we've been traveling, seeing the country, and it was amazing. And then we heard that Scarlett Johansson is in town. And we're like, obviously like, whoa, that's pretty crazy to be that close to like that famous celebrity. And we heard that she was actually going to the same gym that we were going.
What?
So obviously we went to the gym, we were like, where is she? Like stalking. And we never saw her there. So then I went to research stock mode.
Yeah.
I just looked at Google, like what movie was she working on, and there was a blog post that said, it was like some New Zealand online magazine that made the blog post, and in the blog post it said that she was working on this movie Ghost in the Shell, which was one of my absolute favorite movies when I was a teenager.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like, whoa, she's working on that. And then at the end of the blog post, there was an email and a call to action like, hey, if you want to be an extra in this movie, please reach out to us. We're looking for extras. And basically an extra is usually a person in the background, because they need all these extra people, so it doesn't look like there's no one else in the movie but the actors. So I was like, whoa, what an opportunity. Like, I would love to see how they make a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
I never get to fulfill my dream to work for that Weta Workshops company, and who were actually doing work for that movie. And I would also, get to see these celebrities, how they do their work, like people who are really like at such a high level of their craft. So I email in and I send in my details like, hey, I'm this and this, and I do this and that, and if there's still space, I'd love to be an extra. So immediately I get an automated response back that, sorry, but we closed the cast call for extras, but if we need you, we'll get in touch.
Oh, really?
So I was like, damn, like almost, but I missed it. So then a couple weeks go by and I've forgotten about it, and my spouse and I were planning on this longer trip to take to around New Zealand, and we're planning on that, and then I get an email that's from the production company, like, hey, can you send in your like pictures of yourself and your height? So I send him pictures of myself and my height. Don't hear anything back. Another week goes by. I'm like, I probably wasn't the right person they were looking for. And then my spouse and I, we've been planning this trip to go around the North Island, like a 10-day trip, and we planned it to leave like next week. And we've set everything up. We've like planned the trip and the route that we're gonna take, and we're like super excited. And I think it's Wednesday night, and I look at we're supposed to leave Thursday morning. I look at the weather forecast, and it says it's gonna rain the next week, like throughout the country.
In Thailand.
In the entire island, and I'm like, oh damn! Like we need to cancel this big trip that we were planning. The next morning, I get an email and a call right after. I get an email like, "Hey, can you come to the film studio tomorrow morning?" So Friday morning, and then they call me after that email like, "Hey, can you come in?" I'm like, "Of course, I can." And if it had been good weather, we would have been halfway the country. There's no way I could have come to that.
Damn.
So
Now that's being lucky.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it was also that I did send that email. Like I could have like been like, oh, that's not for me. Like I'm not going to be the right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of, and majority of this had to do with luck. So then the next morning, I go in, and I knew where the studios were because we went to check them out earlier, just because they have this massive studios in Wellington, because they filmed Lord of the Rings and all the other many other big movies there.
Yeah.
So I knew where they were, and they gave me the address, like, hey, come to this parking lot, and then the driver will take you to the studios. So I hop into this van, and there are a bunch of other people in the van, and I'm like just try to make a little chat with them, and there was some film crew, and I go to the studio, and there are like big gates in front of the studio, and then you can see these giant they're like these big boxes, concrete boxes that have no windows. So they're the sound stages where they set up all the interior, like all the shots. Like they build all the facades and everything inside. Like if you have a room where you're filming, they're built inside the soundstage. So that's because they are able to control all the lights. So none of it's filmed in like a very little part of the movie is filmed in like real like outdoors.
Oh, right. So everything is like prepared, like stage, basically.
Yeah. There are like so many different stages that they built there. So
Wow.
so I see these like giant boxes, and then the security guard comes to meet me, and they're like, well, go sit in the security what do you call it, by the gate, like the security little shag or whatever, and I have to write NDAs or sign NDAs, and then they tell me like, wait here till your assistant will come pick you up. I'm like, I got an assistant? So then in a little bit, the assistant comes over. She's got this like a headset and a headset set up, and she comes in and she's like, all right, hey, follow me and I'll explain you like what are we doing. And she's like, so you're gonna be a stand-in for this one of the main actors, not for Scarlett Johansson. I'll tell you more about it, but she'll take me to the wardrobe, I get some clothes, and then she takes me to the cafeteria. And in the cafeteria, there are a lot of like all these like Asian people who have these capes on, and then they have these like scars, like this X scars on their over their mouths, and they have these like weird sci-fi glasses and like this weird like sci-fi digital thing sticking out of their heads. And I'm like, where did I come to? Like, what is this place? And there were all the extras in the movie. So I sit down and eat and have a chat with some of the extras, and then my assistant comes in and she's like, well, I'm gonna take you and the other stand-ins to the sound stage.
By the way, what's a stand-in? Because most people probably don't know.
Yeah, I'll explain in a minute. So we go to the giant sound stage, and we go in, and the set that they've built is, first of all, the studio is probably like, I don't know, 50 meters to 100 meters. That's like that's how like big like 50 by 100 meters by like maybe 10, 15 meters tall.
Wow.
So it's like this huge box, and it's totally empty normally, or it's totally empty, but then you put in all the sets, you make all the sets inside. Yeah. So they made these super large sets where when we go in, we have to walk, like there's the wall, and there's probably like this much space because they built these such huge sets, and they have a bunch of chairs there, and they tell us that, hey, like, we're probably not going to need you the whole day, so don't expect that you're going to be in the set. So you might be here all day. So just take a seat, and we'll come get you if we need you. Okay. And then when we were in the cafeteria, they explained what a stand-in does. So basically, a stand-in, like in every movie, you have maybe like 50 different scenes. Every scene, well, it's like depends on a movie, but let's say that you got 30 to 50 different scenes, and every scene might take about a few minutes of the movie time, and every scene might have like 20 to 50 different camera angles. So a 2 minute like a spot in a movie, it might take them like they need 10 different camera angles, and every time they change a camera angle, it can take them from 30 to hour and a half to change the lighting for that they light the actors just perfectly, and they rebuild the camera. So if it has a moving camera or whatnot, they test the camera drive, so they got everything set. Wow. So instead of the like $30 million actors or actresses sitting there or doing their thing, while these guys are just putting the lights on, they have stand-ins. And a stand-in is basically, depends on the movie, sometimes they just stand in, so they get the lighting right.
Right.
So, and they get the camera things. And sometimes we would do we would do the walk, so they would get the camera drives just right. So it's not a very demanding job. Yeah. But what you need to pay attention to is what is it's going to be usually the first assistant director, not the director, the first assistant director or the DP, who DP is director of photography, who usually he chooses what camera angles they use, how the lighting is going to be set up, and what lens they're using on a camera and stuff like that, depending on a DP. Right. So they said that you need to pay attention to these like two people because they're going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
So then we sit down. There are a couple other stand-ins. We sit down, and just as I'm about to put my ass on a chair, the assistant comes running in and she's like, "Jussi, grab your stuff. Let's go right now. We need you right now." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's go." So we get into the set, and then it's this sort of like Japanese restaurant, but from like year 2100, like this sci-fi Japanese like sushi restaurant.
Damn.
And everyone is like, we go through these little like, not alleyways, but these little like corridors.
Yeah.
And everything is like, it's like being in a sci-fi movie. You go watch the movie, 2017 Ghost in the Shell. It's amazing. So we go into this set, and there are all of these people in there. There's so many people, like it's crazy. People are buzzing around. There's broken glass everywhere. There are these people wearing these like these weird things on their face. And so then there's the DP who tells me like, "Hey, Jussi," he doesn't even know my name, and he doesn't care. He's like, "Hey, you, like, go stand right there. Grab that gun," or somebody gives me a handgun. He's like, "Point that way and then look this way." And at first I grabbed the gun. I'm like, "This is like a real gun. Like this is heavy." And he's like, "Yeah, you got to point your gun that way and then look this way." So I started looking at this way, and he's like, "Hey, you need to look at that person in the eye." And I look at the person. My jaw drops to the floor, and I'm like, "That looks like Scarlett Johansson."
What?
And I'm like, "So did he say that I need to look her in the eye or kind of that direction?" Like, I'm not sure what is the proper way to do this. So I'm kind of like looking at her direction, but not really in her eye.
Right.
And so they start setting up the cameras, and it's taking forever. It's taken an hour and a half total, and my hand is starting to shake, and then I start supporting my hand with my other hand, and then I change the gun to my other hand, and the director is like, "Hey, stop it, put your gun in your other hand." I'm like, okay, just shaking there. And then they finally get it all set up, and then they tell us stand-ins like, "Hey, you can move out of the way." And then I asked my assistant like, "Hey, can I watch this scene?" So basically now the stand-ins, they get out of the set and the real actors come in.
Yeah.
And then they do their thing. So I hear this amazing voice and it's Scarlett Johansson. And in that moment I realized that the person I was looking in the eye was Scarlett's double. And she looks very much like her. And obviously I'd never seen Scarlett Johansson in real life, so she's looks very much like her. So Scarlett comes in with her entourage, and she's got a really amazing voice, and she's a really good actress. So she comes in, and all the other actors come in, and they do their thing. So they do maybe 20 takes of that one angle. Then we go, yeah. They work so hard. So then we go in, we do our standing thing, and then the DP, he yells at me, "Hey, you're a foot too short." And I'm like, "Oh no," because the actor I was doing this stand-in for is like a couple inches taller than me.
Yeah.
So they needed to put these apple boxes under my feet, so I'm at the right height for the camera, so the framing is right. So he yells at me that you're a foot too short. I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna get fired the first day I get in." Like, great. Well, at least I had this.
Because I was not born the right height.
Yeah, exactly. So then the day goes by. It was an amazing day. I thought that was the most amazing experience of my life. But it ended here. But it was great while it lasted. So then I go home. I tell all about this to my spouse, and she's like, "Whoa, that's amazing! Like, what a cool experience you got to have." And then then couple days later, I get a call like, hey, can you come into the studio tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I can. Then he's like, anyway, you can grow a little bit taller overnight. I'm like, how much taller? He's like, about 2 inches. I'm like, yeah, sure. It's like, I got this opportunity. I'm not going to blow it another time. Right. So my spouse and I, we go to the local shoe store, and we go to the women's store, part of the store where the women's shoes are. And I try on these stilettos, like these super high heels. Yeah. And my feet are hurting. I'm like, how can anyone do this? This is so hard. So respect to all of you people who wear high heels. And then, there's a person who's helping me out, and I'm like, dude, I can't stand in these for 12 hours a day. And he's like, yes, you can. I'm like, well, how do you know that? He's like, well, I'm actually a drag queen. I've been doing this for 10 years. What? And I'm like, well, maybe you can do this, but I can't. So then my spouse has this great idea, like, let's build these platforms for you. So we go to the other side of the store, and we buy 5 pairs of sandals or flip-flops. And we cut off the straps, and
glue them together.
We glue them together, and we tape them. We buy these cheap sneakers, and we tape that platform that we made. We tape them with duct tape on those shoes. So the next day, I go in, and they ask me to get to the set. I put on my platforms. I wear them proudly as ever. I walk into the set. Everyone bursts to laughter, and it was so funny. So I got to hold on to the job for 3 months. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. I was like a fly in the ceiling, just enjoying every moment. But yeah, so that's the story of how I got to work alongside Scarlett Johansson, and yeah, it was pretty amazing.
That's an amazing story. Now, the food seems to be ready. Are you done on your side?
Pretty much. It's gonna be delicious.
You should squeeze the lemons.
Yeah.
You should probably add some olives if you want to. Oh, by the way, I forgot about this. And then also some olive oil, and I think you are ready to go. All right, so we have finished cooking our beautiful fish rice, and Jussi has prepared this salad. Now you've heard how Jussi got to work alongside with Scarlett Johansson. As we mentioned earlier in this video, Jussi has actually written a book which is called Pro Mental Game. You should check it out at formsupreme.com. That's Jussi's website, online mental training. So make sure to check that out. And on this note, I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I want to thank you, Jussi, for coming over, sharing with us your amazing story, and helping me prepare this beautiful dinner.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invite, thanks for the meal, and thanks for listening.